Thank you for sticking around. This is the Now Morning Show, and I wonder, what do you know about mindfulness and mental health? Well, this morning, my next guest, who is familiar to this set, is going to give us a bit of insight, making some distinctions and helping us. So let me say welcome back to Dr. Paula Robinson, pediatrician and certified children's mindfulness teacher and director of Mindful Kites, the NGO.
Yes.
Welcome back, I should say. Yeah.
yes. I'm always glad to be here and always glad to have you welcome me to the family.
You always come with interesting information we could use, and today you have some props and a little guest. So before we get to know them and how we could use them, what exactly is mindfulness?
It's a great question. So many definitions, but the one I like to use is that it's simply defined as the state of just being aware in a non-judgmental fashion. So what that means is just really taking the moment to notice what's happening in and around us.
Okay.
Very often we live in our heads, as you know. And so we can be engaging in what I often refer to as mental time travel. We're thinking about what we should have said in the past or what we have to worry about in the future.
Right.
And actually missing what's happening right here and now. So it's the art of kind of just bringing us to this present moment, which is where life happens.
Definitely guilty of not being very mindful. When we talk about mindfulness with children, though, that speaks to a level of consciousness that I don't necessarily associate with a very young age. How do you get kids to be more mindful of themselves?
Well, we introduce a lot of play, but in fact, children are actually much better at this than adults, because if you look at young children, they're very good at being in the moment, being completely present. It's really as we get older that we often start to develop a tendency to worry about things that may or may not even happen. So I think introducing that playfulness, that sort of just really curiosity about what's happening right here and now can be a great way to interact with kids.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you didn't have to tell me twice to be more playful, but we get into the serious business because when we talk mental health, it's a buzzword. I think people even mean to say mental health problems and still use the term mental health. So how does mindfulness contribute to our mental and perhaps physical health?
Right. So I love that you made that distinction. I mean, Mindful Kites as an NGO got started in 2019, really because for me personally, as a pediatrician, I could always tell when young people were headed into exam season, because our emergency room would be full of kids getting physical symptoms, chest pain, panic attacks, headaches, and really not recognizing what was happening. So it started me on a journey of exploring and becoming a certified mindfulness teacher. I think one of the things is to switch the way our conversation around mental illness and really think about the same way as we go to the gym to work out, we also need to think about our minds in the same way. So practices for healthy mental health and just really daily kind of self-care and so on are actually so important, but we're never taught that in school actually. So that's how we got engaged with a few schools, that we've had a long establishment with now, and we go in and teach them just really healthy mental practices.
So some of which I hope you're going to share with us this morning, because I realize our little buddy here could probably be a tool, right?
Yes, he can indeed. Just before we kind of talk about that, just really to explain why we have these little tools. Very often what's happening when we're in that state of worry is that we are living, as I said, in our heads. Now, I often use something called the mental model, or the brain in the palm of the hand, which is a good pictorial kind of representation of what our brain is like. So my thumb represents the oldest part of the brain. It's called the amygdala. You don't have to remember that. But essentially what it is really what keeps us surviving. So this is our fight, flight, or freeze response. So very often, if something is about to threaten us, so historically, a woolly mammoth, a dog coming towards us, it'll tell us to do one of three things: fight, flight, or freeze. Right? That's when our muscles get tense, our heart's racing, we're sweating, and so on. Fast forward millions of years, thankfully no woolly mammoths, but life often causes us to be running just on our downstairs brain or our amygdala. And for example, if we're in a test, we're trying to remember all the things we've been learning, this little guy is not helping us out, because as we sweat and we panic, everything that we want to remember flies out of our heads. And we know that when you have mental block, that's exactly what's happening. But instead, we want to activate our upstairs brain. And so with our younger kids, I have a little finger puppet. That's a wise owl for this one. And this is called the prefrontal cortex. But this guy only gets switched on when we regulate our lower brain centers. And so the way we do that is by using our breathing. And by using our breath and our consciousness in the moment actually is how we get to slow things down. And in fact, then we can switch on our memory and access the things that we need to remember. Aha. All right. So the first one we've got is our mindfulness jar, or otherwise known as our glitter jar, snow globe, for instance. And it's a good pictorial representation of what happens. So if I were to shake him up, we'll shake. When we are stressed out and panicked, this is kind of what happens to our mind. Just chaos, basically. We can't see clearly. There's a whole swirl of emotions. And so this actually is a lot of fun for kids to make. We often do this as a craft session. But it's also a reminder that if we just slow things down, if we breathe and focus on it, what we'll notice with time is that the glitter starts to settle slowly and that we can now see more clearly. Right?
Makes sense.
So I'm going to rest him down carefully and we'll check him at the end. But really the essence of this is to remind us just to slow things down in the moment when we can.
A beautiful representation. I always thought it was good to be glittery on the inside and very, very bright.
Well, that's the thing, actually. That's why some people are actually attracted to chaos, because it can be, dramatic. But it depends on what you're trying to focus on. In the middle of an exam, probably not so much.
Not so much. Not so much.
Yeah.
I'm a furry friend.
Yes, I know you were asking about him. So he's my belly buddy, right? And so basically, one of the best ways to remember how to breathe is to slow your breathing down and to be conscious about it. Very often when we're panicked, we're hyperventilating and breathing from here up, which basically isn't really helping us at all. So this little guy often reminds us, a great one to use at night, actually. So it gives two advantages. One is the weight of him on your body, and the other is that you can actually physically raise him up and down. So I'm going to have to lean back a little bit, but imagine that I'm lying down in bed at night, and that I am breathing nice and slowly to raise him up my tummy.
Gotcha.
And then breathe out as I lower him back down. And so this can be done with a pillow. It can be done with your favorite teddy bear, for instance. It's really just noticing that weight of him as you breathe in and out. And usually do 5 of those belly breaths at an evening, basically.
So what you've just demonstrated here, of course, are geared towards younger persons, but easily adaptable to adults. And whether you are in a physical space like your home or your office, you can actually employ these sort of skills. Let's think of the situation where I may not have my belly buddy, didn't get to bring the glitter jar. How do I practice mindfulness in the workplace where I might need it most?
Oh yeah, so again, it's back to using your awareness on your breath. So this one, if you're open to trying it out,
I'm ready.
It starts with your body position, actually, because often we're like this, or in this screen age, we're often bent over. So really what we talk about is something called getting into your mindful bodies, which means you want to put your feet flat on the floor. Love it. Your legs comfortably, but not too tense. Ideally, things out of your hands, so phones, devices, etc. Step away from them. And your back straight, but not, ramrod straight. So almost like a tree reaching up to the sky. Right?
I like that thought.
Very nice.
Entire studio is doing this with me now.
Exactly, I like that. Let's go. And the other thing, if you're okay with it, what I'm going to invite you to do is either just to look down on the table in front of you or to close your eyes. And just take a second to just notice the sounds around you. There may be something that you're noticing for the first time, like maybe the hum of something in the background, the sounds of people around. Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to invite you now, once you've done that, just to do what I call the fof bok. Feet on the floor, body in the chair. So you're just going to take your attention to your toes in your shoes and maybe feel your feet inside your shoes. Notice what that feels like without moving them. And like a torchlight, you're going to take your attention slowly up from your feet up to the backs of your calves, your knees, the backs of your legs in the chair, and your sitting bones, and maybe your lower back being supported by the chair.
I'm going to open my eyes only because this is incredibly powerful. I genuinely didn't expect to have significant impact immediately because I thought of mindfulness and things of the nature of mental health to be a little bit more complex and a little bit more deliberate, but it really is just being deliberate.
It's just really simple practices, I think, done on a regular basis. What we usually say is practice it regularly, because when you need these tools and techniques, that's when they can be really helpful. But by using techniques like fof bok and grounding and breathing, it really gets us into the present moment and out of our heads.
Always a delight to have you on set with us. And I know that it's something that everybody could use, not just kids, but adults as well. So this morning on The Now, you've learned a little bit more about mindfulness. Be mindful and come back after the break to be entertained here on The Now.
I said drifting on a river.